Screenshot.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm here to do basically my final recap of books, my book wrap up. Basically the rest of the books I read in August. I'm tired. There's been a lot happening lately. Among other things, we may have been exposed to COVID, so we have to get tested. Isn't that great? We're back to this again. I thought this was over. No, this isn't over. This will never be over. Okay. It'll probably be over at some point. Who knows? But either way, I have to get tested, and I'm not looking forward to sticking something up my nose. And on that note, let's get to the book, shall we? So the first one that I have for the second half of August is Haven Point by Virginia Hume. I give this one 3 stars. Honestly, my reading has not been that great this month. I have had this one on my TBR for a long time. I know I got it through Currently Reading podcast during their indie press list. I don't remember which bookstore it was from. Okay, so basically Currently Reading podcast does this thing. It's called the indie press list, and they basically partner up with a bookstore every month, and that bookstore recommends books to Currently Reading podcast Patreon members, and we buy the books from said bookstore, and thus we help independent bookstores. I cannot remember where this book came from, but it wasn't it was okay. I give it 3 stars. For me, that means it's like, it was fine, but I wasn't, like, wowed by it. So I'll read the description. 1944. Maren Larson is a blonde beauty from a small Minnesota farming town, determined to do her part to help the war effort and to see the world beyond her family's cornfields. As a cadet nurse at Walter Reed Medical Center, she swept off her feet by Dr. Oliver Demarest, a handsome Boston Brahmin whose family spends summers in an insular community on the rocky coast of Maine. 1970. As the nation grapples with the ongoing conflict in Vietnam, Oliver and Maren are grappling with their fiercely independent 17-year-old daughter, Annie, who has fallen for a young man they don't approve of. Before the summer is over, a terrible tragedy will strike the Demarists, and in the aftermath, Annie vows never to return to Haven Point. 2008. Annie's daughter, Sky, has arrived in Maine to help scatter her mother's ashes. Maren knows that her granddaughter inherited Annie's view of Haven Point. Despite the wild beauty and quaint customs, the regattas and clam bakes and sing-alongs, she finds the place and the people snobbish and petty. But Maren also knows that Annie never told Sky the whole truth about what happened during that fateful summer. So basically, it's like all these 3 generations kind of interweaving. We really kind of mainly focus on Maren and Sky as they go throughout their lives. So we see Sky's childhood with Annie, which is her mom, and then Maren's adulthood with her husband, and like Annie's childhood through the years. We don't actually get to hear from Annie herself, which I thought we would. We just hear about Annie's behavior from other people, pretty much. Her daughter and her mother. That being said, there was definitely a lot of family dysfunction in this book, and we see it. But I don't know. I don't really come away from this book convinced that Haven Point is this great haven, quote unquote. I don't know. To me, it's Dysfunction City. And the people sucked. I don't know. Like, you know how you read about small towns, like summers in small towns, and despite the flaws, you're charmed by the place? I wasn't charmed in the least. And we flipped back and forth so much that it was hard to really, like, root for anybody. I didn't care about anyone. I was just judging them for their bad choices. So, like, I just didn't care. So, yeah, I don't know. I gave this one 3 stars. I was compelled to finish it to find out what happened for the plot, but when you don't care about the people or the place, it's just not a great book for me. But a lot of other people love it, so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone else will like it. Next is Nobody Loves Me by Maggie Hartley. I gave this one 4 stars. This is one of the fostering memoirs I read. Maggie Hartley is a foster carer, and she basically, her and other foster care authors basically write about their experiences with different foster kids. And this one is about a sibling group who come in, and there's 2 girls and a boy, and the boy is basically really mistreated, and the girls are treated well, and you kind of find out the mystery of that. Honestly, I wasn't that. I kind of felt like Maggie was a tad naive in this book. I love Maggie, don't get me wrong, but like the second you know that 2 of them are blood related and the little boy is not related, like it's a stepchild, come on. Like, it was sort of obvious what the problem was. So, yeah, I mean, I like enjoyed it because I love the little boy and stuff, and it was just a little annoying because I was like, okay, Maggie, use your brain. No offense, Maggie. I usually don't think you're clueless, but in this case, I figured it out faster than you did. Anyway, 4 stars. Next is probably my favorite book of this month, One Summer in Savannah by Tara Shelton Harris. I got this one through Renee from the Book Talk Etc. podcast. It came out on July 4th. So, I'll read the description. It's been 8 years since Sarah Lancaster left her home in Savannah, Georgia. 8 years since her daughter, Alana, came into this world, following a terrifying assault that left deep emotional wounds Sarah would do anything to forget. But when Sarah's father falls ill, she's forced to return home and face the ghosts of her past. While caring for her father and running his bookstore, Sarah is desperate to protect her curious, outgoing, genius daughter from the Weilers, the family of the man who assaulted her. Sarah thinks she can succeed. Her attacker is in prison. His identical twin brother, Jacob, left 2 years ago, and their mother are all unaware Alana exists. But she soon learns that Jacob has also just returned to Savannah to piece together the fragments of his once great family. And when their 2 worlds collide, the type of force Sarah explores in her poetry and Jacob in his astrophysics, they are drawn together in unexpected ways. So yeah, basically, Sarah has a child via Jacob's twin brother in a non-consensual manner. This child was conceived through non-consensual ways. And so she basically takes off for 8 years to get away from the family, and she has to come back only when her father is sick and she has no choice. So yeah, she meets up with the twin brother. They pretty much fall in love, as you can see from the description. She's very hesitant at first, obviously. I mean, they're identical twins. But, like, you still see those complications, I guess. Like, he's put in a really difficult spot because she doesn't want him to tell his family about her daughter and all that stuff. I mean, I don't really blame her for it. I don't know. It was just a really interesting, I guess, way to tell that story. I don't know if I completely buy that you'd fall in love with the twin brother that did that. Like, with the look-alike of the person that did that to you. I just have a hard time buying that. But if you can look past that, I think it really does teach a lot about forgiveness and, you know, all that stuff. And I'm not preaching forgiveness for anyone. You do you. If you are happy holding a grudge for the rest of your life, by all means, go for it. I mean, I'm not, I can hold a grudge probably forever, but, you know, I'm just saying that it was a realistic journey of forgiveness, I think, for Sarah and for Jacob, too, for what his brother did. Like, the complication of what his brother did, because, I mean, he did a really bad thing, but then you also see the result of that bad thing. Meaning Alana, the little girl, who's really fun. She's a genius, as the description says. I don't know. There's no, like, it's not graphic. Like, you don't really see you don't see it happen. There is one, like, unclean scene, but that's, like, a romantic one, so to speak. But, if you don't want to read sex scenes, that's the only sex scene you will see. A romantic one. Which you are free to skip. But, yeah. Like I said, I think it was a really realistic journey for Sarah and for Jacob to kind of reach forgiveness and kind of come to peace with it all. I forgot to mention that Jacob's twin, Alana's biological father, is also, like, dying of cancer. That's why Jacob actually has to come home. Well, I guess he doesn't have to, but, he does come home because you have, like, the complication of, oh, that's my brother, and, oh, he did this terrible thing, but he's still my brother. It was just really complicated. It was a lot of complicated dynamics, but I really kind of got into this book, so I give this one 5 stars. Next is The Air Raid Book Club by Annie Leon. I think I got this one, if I'm not wrong, I got this one through Chloe from Always Booked. It was like one of the new releases that just came out, or that was coming out. I enjoyed it overall. This woman basically loses her husband, and she, like, is really depressed, and then her friend suggests that she takes in a girl from, like, the Kinder Transport during World War II, and so she does. It's kind of rocky at first as a teenage girl, and, she's kind of a curmudgeonly lady, this woman. So she doesn't want to admit that she loves this kid, but she does, and it's a whole thing. Ooh, airplane. Speaking of air raids. But yeah, basically she owns this bookstore, and she wants to, like, she starts an air raid book club. So whenever, like, the air raid sirens come out, they have to go into shelter. Her and a bunch of people, like, talk books or talk whatever book they were reading that month during that time, and it helps pass the time. I gave it 3 stars just because there were so many characters that I couldn't really, like, get into them. And also the audio was awful. Like, I rarely complain about audio narrators, but oh boy. I mean, the way this woman does an old man voice, I'm sorry, darling. I can't even do it. It's so bad. Don't mind me, darling. I'm a silly old man. I could not handle it. So, like, just the quality of the narration was so bad that I didn't enjoy the book as much as I might have. But still, I think it probably would have been a better story if the narrator had been better and the old man didn't sound like Mickey Mouse on helium. But yeah, with a British accent. Mickey Mouse on helium with a British accent. Anyway, there's that one. And then the last 2 books. So, I honestly read these more for noise than anything else and idle curiosity, because I've been kind of on a Duggar rabbit hole. The 19 Kids and Counting family, because of the whole, like, infamous Josh Duggar thing. I had watched this family when I was younger, like when they were on TLC, and since the docu-series came out in June about them, I've been waiting for Jill Duggar's book to come out in September, for one thing. I mean, that's going to be on my TBR for this month. But I found Michelle Duggar's 2 books on Hoopla on audio. And I'm like, you know what? They're free. I'm not giving her any money. Why not? So I read them. I listened to them. Honestly, I was kind of going through some family stuff during this time. So I didn't really feel like reading anything too deep. It was just monotonous enough to answer some questions, but also just to give me some background noise. So the first one is The Duggars, 20 and Counting. I give this one 2 stars, merely because, I mean, it was kind of boring. It was literally like a lot of like how they managed this large family, and, you know, they had 17 children at the time that they wrote this book. I think. Yeah. 17. They were pregnant with number 18. So a lot of this book was really, I mean, some of the early childhood stuff with Jim Bob and Michelle was interesting, but overall, a lot of it was just like how they do things, and we kind of already get that from the show, from what I remember of the show. So it wasn't that interesting, really, once you get past the early years of their marriage, how they met and all that stuff, and like what their families were like. It's kind of wild to think that Michelle actually had a pretty normal family. So, yeah. And then the last one I read was her other book, A Love That Multiplies. I gave this one 3 stars, only because it was a tad more interesting, because we get into the premature birth of Josie, their 19th child. I think she was born at like 24 weeks gestation. So she weighed like less than a pound, I think. And so it was interesting to read kind of their journey with that. But then it veered off into more self-help things, and I was like, okay, I'm bored again. But like the first half of it was really interesting, because you get to learn a lot about the NICU and like preemies and all that stuff. So I definitely was interested in that. And yeah, I kind of stopped reading after that. A family member passed away, and we've just been out of town going to the funeral and stuff like that, and I didn't feel like reading. So yeah, I'm starting fresh this month. I already finished 1 book for September, so yeah, hopefully you'll have a better TBR this month. I have not had a great streak in these past few months, but anyway, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!
Speech on. Stop recording video.